My name is Ross Pringle. I do as much as I possibly can these days, to be honest. Like, I'm currently working out of my industry. I'm currently working as a stock and asset controller in a warehouse. Normally, in any other time in the world isn't a pandemic, I'd be like out on tour as a lighting and video technician, normally on moving lights, repairs departments, or a service technician really on tour. That's me. To be honest, that's who I've just kind of ended up back at home, back in Scotland, back at home. That's it, really.
Okay. So, what were you doing before the lockdown?
So, before the lockdown in Scotland, before the lockdown in the UK, I was actually out on tour with Cirque du Soleil as a lighting and video technician for OVO, which was a show that toured into the Hydro 2 years ago, maybe a year ago. We were on our North American tour, week by week touring arenas. I was in the lighting department as the moving light repair technician, basically taking the lead on that, working with a team of 4. We were travelling the world with that. Prior to that, I was still with Cirque du Soleil, and I was travelling with Lucia, which at the start of this year, I loaded into the Royal Albert Hall. With Cirque du Soleil, we were there. That's a big top tour, so that travelled city to city for 2 or 3 months at a time, sit down. I was basically travelling the world, living a dream, getting paid to travel and work at the same time, and sitting down and relaxing in cities for 2 or 3 months. I've been on tour, basically, and away from home, away from Scotland, away all around the UK since 2015, just working, and that's really it. But most of what I was doing was completely events, completely live entertainment, live performances, live shows. But that was it, really.
So, what was your day-to-day like?
Before the lockdown, my day-to-day really was like getting up, having a really, like, I had my own space when we travelled on tour. I wasn't, like, now I'm back in my parents' place, but now back then I was having my own apartment, so I was with a housemate, having my own space, having my own life, having a completely different life to what I have now. I'd get up in the morning, would be walking distance or a subway distance in a metropolitan city. Actually, I'd get up, have some breakfast, get on either the bus to take us to the arena or walking distance to the arenas, and going to work, and then having a couple of shows, and then probably going out for something to eat after the shows, or going out for dinner or a couple of drinks after the show with a lot of people that are really close to me. I would have called them, like, people say like tour families or families you work with. They really were our families, because we were all strangers in a different city each week. We all became very close. We all became a big family. Compared to now, where it's really, I've came home and everyone else that I used to work with and live with for like the last 2 years, say, they're all over, scattered all over the world. We've got friends in Portugal, America, all over America. I've got friends in Canada. There's people from the same company but different shows who are from Scotland, but there's only 1 or 2 of us. The closest person that is to me from this show that I was actually last on is in Preston, and there's another boy out in East Yorkshire. And it's weird to me not seeing these people every day and getting to go to a show, working on a show and getting to bring performance to people. So my day-to-day life is really just completely different. It's completely changed. Now I wake up and I'm, not to sound rude, but it's great because I get to see my little sisters and my little brother every day now. I get to see my little sister off to school, which is something I never got to do 5 years ago in the last 5 years because I was away. I see much more my hometown friends, which just feels a bit weird and different, but it's great because I've actually got to go home rather than rushing home for 2 or 3 days, putting a load of washing on, saying hello to my mum and my dad, and then rushing out the door and going and seeing my friends for one more day, coming home, taking my washing out, folding my laundry, loading my suitcase and going straight back away again. I'm actually home. This is the longest I've been home since 2015. Actually getting to enjoy my time home. But I do really feel my life's completely shifted. I was definitely a different person 6 months ago because I was out and I was enjoying a lot more of what I do. But now I'm at home. I'm at home and I feel like my life's shifted and I've went back 5 or 6, maybe even, probably 6 years now, I feel, or 7 years if that. I feel like I've shifted way back to when I was like 18 years old. That's how I feel it's went down. I've completely taken a step backwards in life.
So, when before the lockdown had happened, there was like rumours of like COVID-19. What did you know about it?
So we take it back to the start of March, just before the lockdown happened in the UK. I was in El Paso, Texas, and it was just a sort of shrug of the shoulders. Oh, it's just a little flu. It's not actually a real thing. And then we didn't really know much about it because I was in America at the time and it was just kind of like a shrug. And say if we go back to January this year, I knew nothing about it. I'd never heard of it. And I was in the UK, I was in London working away, flew on the 31st of December from Vancouver to London to put in Lucia into the Royal Albert Hall. And I had no idea about it, never heard anything, never seen a report, never heard anything about the pandemic. And then fast forward a couple of months and I'm back into America on a new show on OVO, touring on that show, working on that show. Had no idea about it. Kind of heard towards the start of March, heard a couple of, there's a kind of a pandemic, it's kind of a flu-like virus going around, but we thought nothing of it. It wasn't really in the news headlines back then. It wasn't really a big thing. And then we spent a 2-day load-in El Paso, which was a very difficult arena. It was a huge ramp to load in, and we loaded the show in and we had a 45-minute full company, 45 minutes before opening the house. They pulled us in for a full company meeting and told us the show was cancelled. And we assumed that it was just the North American leg, but actually it was the North American leg, and we were told we restart when we're supposed to go to China, but we don't know when we're going to China yet. So for right now, we're going to do one show and then we're going to load out. So we were sort of in what I flashback to say the start of March roughly. We basically we spent 2 days loading the show in, and 45 minutes before opening the house, we had a full company meeting to tell us we were cancelled, and it was due to the pandemic, COVID-19. And I was sitting there going, I've heard about this, but not thinking anything of it. It was oblivious to me because how fast-paced my life was, and moving every week, loading in on, say, a Monday or a Tuesday, doing shows all the way up to Sunday night, and getting on a bus that takes you to the plane, and we'd take a private plane to the next venue, the next arena, and then starting the next day loading in. It was a past-thought. I didn't realise that it was so bad. And then we started loading out, and then there was an outbreak in El Paso, and I flew home back to Scotland, I think it was the 13th or the 14th of March, the day Donald Trump shut down the borders to the USA, and I was panicking that I wasn't going to get home because I had to fly from somewhere in Texas to Dallas, then Dallas to London, and then London to Glasgow. And it was a full day. I lost like a full 2 days of travel by the time I got home, just not understanding what was going on. And then the next day I got up and it was the UK's in lockdown. COVID-19's hit the UK and we're all panicking. And I was like, I'm not following this. And I remember sitting going, because we talked about it between our department, right, I'm going to isolate we'd all sort of said, well, I'll isolate for 2 weeks once you get in from travelling. And the UK government said, you don't really need to isolate once you fly home back in March. But I took it upon myself to isolate because I felt it was the right thing to do after being through 3 or 4 airports in 2 days. So I knew very little about what was actually going on and what was happening. Apart from I know some of my friends in America were stranded, and a couple of Chinese friends that I had were stranded in America for struggling to get flights back to China. The company were like, right, we booked your flights, you need to go home, we need to cancel shows for as long as we can, because we don't know how long this is going to last, if it's going to last forever, what's what. Nobody really knows what's happening in the world. And I felt so out of the loop and so thrown out of it that I had no idea. And that was echoed across friends who were on other shows at the time. And I had friends who were in Russia loading in their show, and they had to stop their load in halfway through to fly home, or they flew home and then people stayed to finish it just to get the show out. So everybody just abruptly had to stop. And I've had no idea how long this is going to last, or if it's going to last forever, to be honest.
So after the lockdown, how did your work life, or during the lockdown, how did your work life change?
So when I came back in March, and I'll be honest, I took it as a bit of a relief. It was actually really nice to have a break, have a holiday, treat it like a holiday, and I actually came back, and to be home in Scotland again was really refreshing for me physically and mentally. I came back and everybody told me I had an accent because I'd been away from Scotland, and I realised it as well. I heard it myself. Little things that I would say, like I will never use the word holiday now. I always use the words vacation, and everybody pulls me up for it because I'll say I'm going for a vacation. I want to go for a vacation, and people say, you mean a holiday? My dad says all the time, you mean a holiday? And I'm like, a vacation? A holiday to me is away in a camper van or camping. A vacation's abroad, sun, stuff like that for me. But I treated March, April, and a little bit of June as a sort of mental refresh, a physical refresh, a restart button, just to have a bit of normality and just be home, enjoy being home in Scotland, see my friends that I hadn't seen in years, seeing how they've moved on with their lives, catching up with people, just even if it's just being in the same time zone as a lot of people. And then towards the sort of, say the start of June, I was actually getting a bit sick of it and a bit sick of not doing very much. I'm not someone that likes to sit around and do very little. I kind of like to keep myself busy, even if it's doing something. Like I was doing a lot of gardening with my dad. We've done a lot of home renovation projects. We built a shed. We paved a lot of the back garden in the lockdown because I wasn't doing anything and I'd rather do something. So the sort of start of June, I sort of kicked myself into gear and I was like, right, we're going to write a regular person CV, not an entertainment CV, a no production CV, not a live event CV. I'm going to write a regular CV. And I wrote it and I applied for God knows how many jobs under the sun, doing all sorts of different things, supermarket jobs, delivery driver, delivery picker jobs, you name it. Like I applied to do training courses in security, and I got knocked back from loads of different things that I would have otherwise thought, I can do that. I could work in a supermarket. I could stack shelves. Luckily enough, I got in contact. My mum sent me an advertisement of something on Facebook that had a phone number on it for an agency, and I phoned them, and they were like, yeah, sure, come in. Your experience sounds right up our street. We just need hard workers. And I was pretty honest with the people. I said, look, I'd rather do something than nothing. I'm starting to dig into the savings that I've made from 5 years of working away, working abroad. I enjoy hard work. I enjoy doing something. I'd rather do something than nothing. And then they offered me a chance at a job, and I've been at that ever since. Been at that maybe 9 or 10 weeks now, and it's considerably less money. It's considerably, actually the hours are about the same. I work a back shift Monday to Friday, though sometimes I work the weekends just to be a little bit crazy and work 7 days a week and then work another week. Just because I'm someone that can't sit still. I don't like to do nothing, and I always feel a wee bit bad if I'm sitting around doing nothing, because I'm able-bodied. I'm able to do something. I've tried to pull in the experience of what I've done before, but it's really just a lot of like hard work and then just a mental capacity to stay calm under pressure. And I work with a computer currently a lot of the time and on my feet, and I can take from what I've done in entertainment and production to do that. And I don't want to say it's easy, but I don't want to say it's not challenging, because it can be at times. It can be very stressful, but working at a small team, we work hard and we get it done, really.
So how do you feel about this situation personally?
I feel upset a lot of the time about it, but I tell myself that it could be a lot worse, and I know people who are in worse situations. When I came home, I tried to find a flat. I've been trying to find somewhere to live, but luckily my parents still had a space for me, so I was able to move back in with them. I've been trying to find somewhere to live since the end of June, but with the way the world is with COVID and the pandemic, it's been proven really difficult. I feel really upset that I miss my work, and I miss the people and the faces and the smiles of those that I worked with. I miss the workflow. I miss the dynamic of events. I miss the dynamic of the people who make events. That's what I miss. I miss the people that I worked with more than anything. I miss the sort of lifestyle of moving around a lot. I get itchy feet a lot, and I've had itchy feet since April, not being on a tour bus or not being on a plane. I never thought I was a big plane person. I never thought I was really into aviation till I didn't fly every week, till I didn't take a private plane for the 5th week in a row because we had to make it to the next arena. But I miss the people, I miss the show, I miss the being of what that show or that production, that work, part of that is mine, that's my workflow. I kind of I really miss getting my hands in amongst moving lights. That's something I miss. I miss getting to work on it, like what I was doing. I miss my work. I miss the people at my work. Everybody would say, yeah, you miss the money. Well, of course, who doesn't miss the money? I'm back in Scotland on a considerably less, but I know that there's people out there who are struggling more than me, and I feel sad for those people who are really struggling or who have families. I'm quite self-sufficient, and I can afford that. I can help my family right now with the money I earn and still live and breathe, really. It's a bit morbid. I didn't mean it like that.
So, after the initial lockdown and the way things are progressing now, has your work life changed for the better? Do you see anything kind of progressing towards the events side, or are you?
The one thing this has taught me is it's brought me a lot down to earth. The Cirque du Soleil that I was working, travelling and touring with before is we were very spoiled, you know. There's a catering team that look after you, you get your accommodation paid for. I'm now back in my parents' spare bedroom where I live with my mum, I live with my dad, my 2 sisters and my little brother. I was in a 2-bedroom apartment before with one roommate my own age who had the same interests, and we would go out so much. Moving forward, like I've came back, I've met some really nice people at the place I'm working at just now. It's great. My main thing why I love events and what I do is the people. It's the people that I meet doing it, and it's for other people. I love giving back or doing stuff for other people because I always believe that it will come around. I'd love to say that we're progressing back into events. People are working so hard on how we can make this happen, and I do believe that it will come back. We just need to work at it and be patient.
And so your previous social connections, are you managing to keep those?
I've never in my life been one for phone calls or FaceTime, and I'm also I can be an antisocial person. If I'm busy and I'll forget I said I'd call this person, but now I actually spend a lot of time, rather than texting someone, I'll just say, phone me, FaceTime me. Yesterday I ride my bike to work, and I'm talking to my friend in America, my old housemate, and I said to her, call me. She's like, all right, okay. And I was cycling home with my headphones on, and she was talking to me. I feel like now I spend more time, actually I'll just, out of the blue, I'll call someone just to check up on them or see how they're doing. I talked to one of the boys I worked with before in Preston, and he's alone because he's came back from even longer away on tour than me, and he's came back to a house that he owned that he's had to move into, and he'd forgotten just what it was like to be back in the UK. So I feel like I use the internet a lot more now to communicate more than I ever have with people. Of course, I'm of the age and the generation where everybody can be contacted on their phone at all times, but I found myself reaching out to more random people that say I haven't worked with for longer or a while ago, and just thought, what are they doing? I wonder how they're doing. So I do use call now a lot more just to hear people's voice and see how people are doing. But my social life has progressed in a great sense where I can see all my friends from Renfrew and from Glasgow again in person, or at least be closer, or at least in the same. To me, being in the same time zone is great, is a lot of people, because it's a lot easier to work out. Whereas when I was in Canada, I was 8 hours ahead or 8 hours behind of my parents, and trying to call them on the same schedule when I'm not working was difficult. Of course, it's difficult when I've got a lot of people who are away and abroad. I've got friends in Australia who are 12, 11 hours different from us. that was really hard because we're both obviously working, trying to find a time where we can both. I've set up at some points at 1 o'clock in the morning just to make a Zoom call that has 16, 17 different people on it, all from time zones all over the world, and I'll come in the time zone with my eyes bags and a crow's feet, and people are like, oh, Ross, what time is it? And I'm like, it's 1 a.m. for me. Like, oh, it's 6 o'clock for us here in Montreal. And I'm like, that's good for you. Like, I'm making much more of an effort to keep in touch with people because it's easy. Now that I see you can do it with Zoom calls, FaceTime, Messenger, WhatsApp, a lot of like face-to-face video calls, just to keep up with people. And I think that's quite great.
So, going on, what would you like to see or could see happening to, I suppose, bring the industry back that you're working in? Do you have any ideas for that?
I think the main thing is we need to be patient. We need to wait, and we can't rush into things. We need to have things planned. We need to be very methodical about how we do it. There definitely for a long time coming has been work practices that have to change. This rushing in to push events up and push stages in and push stadiums together to push shows in has always for a long time coming been waiting for someone to just say, you need to slow down. Everything's rushing. You need to, putting shows up in a day and putting 2 shows on at night is a rush. It's not good for people's physical and mental health when you're constantly rushing things. I feel like we need to slow down. Props to the production teams and stuff who are already out there putting on these socially distanced events. I think that's great. I've never been to one myself. I think they're quite interesting to see how, I'd like to see how they've taken the steps towards that, with the procedures they've taken towards that. Because I've seen I've worked on festival stages, I've worked in theatre, I've worked in arena gigs where it's rush, 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 rush. Whereas now you can see, like, right, what can we slow down because we need to do things safely. Not that things weren't safe before, but we can at least push forward. I don't know how, or I'd love to be part of I've talked with a lot of friends, and I'm part of committees. Like, there's the Bec 2 Touring Theatre Committee that has just been established and launched this summer, this lockdown even. We set this up. A couple of colleagues of mine have set it up, and it's now we're going to have representation when we tour in the UK from a UK union, which we never had before. We've now actually, because the industry has came to a stop, we've had time to actually sit down and organise a little bit of, well, actually this is not fair, or we can now actually have a civil place where industry professionals can come together and discuss what's happening. There's the Glasgow or Scottish Technicians Union that I've seen pop up in the last 2 days that I don't know very much about, I've not seen much about, but that seems to be popping up because now we've got the time to reform and publicly broadcast information about what can and can't be done, what's safe, what's allowed. As far as taking events forward and how to do it, I don't know. I'd just like to say that we need to be patient about it and be methodical about how we think about it.